Ukraine. We got a couple of stories from overseas about what's going on with UK and narrative managing in Ukraine, and I thought it also quite important to talk about this. First, Consortium News, who is, of course, an Indie Media Award honoree. Yes. This is an article who's in Canberra, that's Australia. Tony Kevin, who I'm not familiar with, but I thought, again, this was an important piece because this is somebody, an editor at Radio New Zealand has been suspended and is under investigation for the time-honored practices of providing balanced and factual reporting. Suspended for providing balanced news on Ukraine. And this happened 5 days ago. And they're a day ahead of us, so it's actually kind of 6 days ago. But Tony says that on Friday, the Guardian Australia website carried a news report with a follow-up piece on Monday whose implications for free speech are profoundly disturbing. They concern a Radio New Zealand or RNZ broadcasting employee, unnamed, but everyone in the small New Zealand broadcasting world will soon know who it is, who has been placed on leave while their professional conduct is investigated. Jesus Christ. Yes. Persecuted and prosecuted for journalism. Here we go again. Obviously, a career hangs in the balance. So the malign ghosts of Orwell's 1984 stalk this story. So yuck. This is really, really scary. So Russian garbage, of course, the unnamed person in RNZ committed the cardinal sin of inappropriate editing of incoming Reuters news feeds on the war in Ukraine to insert Russian garbage, quote unquote, in the contemptuous words of Paul Thompson, chief executive of RNZ. That is to say, they drew on Russian news sources to insert balancing pro-Russian material to the incoming Western news agency feeds. Oh, that's a big no-no.
Who's a madman?
Oh, Jamal, come on. Come on. That's not
Who's
cool.
a madman?
Yeah, I know. I know what you think, but you don't even know what the Donbass is. Come on. The Guardian tells us that, in fact, accurate information about Ukraine was added to the Reuters copy. The articles in question made a range of amendments, adding the word coup to describe the Maidan Revolution, changing a description of Ukraine's former pro-Russian president to read pro-Russian elected government, adding references to a pro-Western government that had suppressed ethnic Russians, and on several occasions added references to Russian concerns about neo-Nazi elements in Ukraine. I did not see that happening. Not see at all. Do not see the Nazis. We did not see the Nazis. Come on. No, except for Joe did 4 videos about it. And more truth was added. Yes, and more truth was added to the story, the Guardian says. So, quote, in one article, a paragraph was added reading, the Kremlin also said its invasion was sparked by a failure to implement the Minsk Agreement peace accords, which, of course, Aaron Mate's reported on, and many people many times, Mearsheimer, anyone that's been objectively reporting on Russia-Ukraine, designed to give Russia speakers autonomy and protection, and the rise of neo-Nazi element in Ukraine since a coup ousted a Russian-friendly Ukrainian government in 2014. That's a quote, right?
Mm-hmm.
Another added that Russia launched its investigation, claiming that a U.S.-backed coup in 2014 with the help of neo-Nazis had created a threat to its borders and ignited a civil war that saw Russian-speaking minorities persecuted. Also 100% true. It's Luhansk, it's Donetsk, it's the Donbass region. It's even since the annexation of Crimea in 2014 and the Minsk Accords.
Yep.
This, it seems, is an offense not to be countenanced any longer in New Zealand. An RNZ spokesperson, John Barr, said in a statement after the first article came to public attention that RNZ is taking the issue extremely seriously and is investigating how the situation arose, the newspaper wrote. Guardian, also not a tremendously wonderful or credible source. They're also in bed with the Gates Foundation and funded by also, I believe, the Saudi royal family. I know the UK Independent is. In its effort to correct the story, says, Ukraine says these claims are discredited Kremlin propaganda. The anti-corruption movement was peaceful and had widespread support. Yanukovych fled to Russia months later after his security forces shot dead more than 100 armed protesters. Unquote.
Yanukovych is that tennis player?
He was the no. Yanukovych. No, that's Novak Djokovic.
I was thinking of the lady one.
Now, the RNZ executive Thompson was gutted to learn what had been going on under his watch. We read that 250 past published articles have been gone through with a fine-tooth comb to investigate.
And we ain't found shit.
Oh, no, they found a lot. To investigate and counter such offensive and certain material, and thousands more are being reviewed. Narrative management to the hilt. Going back and changing history. 16 such offending articles have been found and warning commentaries added to them. Investigations continue while the staffer remains indefinitely suspended. The responsible minister is being briefed. Clearly, these editors have not delved deeply into the Ukraine story. And of course, you've got douchey Luke Harding from The Guardian. Both Guardian articles carry a tagline that says, additional reporting by Luke Harding. Do we know who Luke Harding is? Well, let's find out. This should be a key warning to everyone in New Zealand and Australia's broadcasting world, indeed in the entire English-speaking world. Harding carries a formidable reputation as an inveterate anti-Russian British journalist with alleged strong links to the UK anti-Russian disinformation system and even to MI6, which of course is the UK Secret Intelligence Service. He was heavily involved in the Julian Assange affair and in the now discredited campaign to label former U.S. President Donald Trump as an asset under Russian control. He is a known
Russiagate assholes.
He is known as a leading Western disinformation warrior. So that's a little background on Luke Harding, and he's now involved with this bullshit too. So, Australian Broadcasting Company, or ABC journalists, edit incoming feeds from Reuters and other wire services all the time. They add context, link to previous stories, add Australian relevant material. The problem is this person in RNZ was adding such context from the wrong side. Propaganda. I mean, this is blatant propaganda. Like, they don't care. Use our propaganda. Don't use their narrative whatsoever. Don't allow any of that information to come through because that might counter our propaganda. The ABC has long been exposed as an obedient servant of the U.S.-dominated Five Eyes intelligence network and runs along approved anti-Russian and anti-Chinese editorial lines. RNZ, by contrast, is still widely respected in New Zealand, but it committed the sin of allowing counter perspectives to be heard on the responsibility for the present tragic war in Ukraine. So this is the Five Eyes network. You've got US, Canada, UK, Australia, and New Zealand.
And where's the sixth eye?
All over the world in space.
Beep, beep, beep.
Watching us all. Read the two Guardian articles to see exactly what Harding in London and his colleagues in UK disinformation appear to be objecting to. It sends a strong message across the Tasman Sea from New Zealand to the Australian media world. We watch every word you say and every word you write. So he's being canceled. Somebody is being canceled for the same thought crimes. The examples of journalistic misconduct identified in the two articles match exactly research and opinions on the historical context and causes of the war in Ukraine and mounting Russia-West tensions that I've been trying to express publicly in Australia as an expert former senior diplomat since the publication of my book, Return to Moscow, in 2017. And as a result, I've been canceled, unpersoned, silenced, dropped down the ABC memory hole.
Unpersoned.
Yep. Never to be allowed on its airwaves again. An innocuous interview I conducted from Moscow with Paul Barclay for the respected ABC program Big Ideas in February 2022 was disarchived. Yes, you read that right. A few weeks later, under pressure from unidentified critics. That sounds like the U.S. military or someone involved with some kind of defense contractor or defense lobbying agency. Ukraine is losing. I'm going to highlight that. Ukraine is losing, folks. The war in Ukraine now winds steadily towards its inevitable pro-Russian denouement. Russia clearly has the military edge, and this will not change now. Billions of dollars worth of supplied U.S. NATO equipment continues to be destroyed in combat. In suicidal offensives ordered by the doomed Zelensky regime in Kiev, not Kyiv, but Kiev, an estimated 500,000 Ukrainian soldiers have been crippled or killed since February 2022. Of course, exact casualty figures are very hard to come by. Many more proxy warriors will die in the coming weeks as this brutal war of attrition demanded by the U.S. and NATO continues to destroy what is left of poor Ukraine. And solidarity to the citizens and people of Ukraine that don't want this to happen, that want a peace, that want to make some kind of a deal, that don't want to continue this silliness because we know inevitably what is going to happen. Australians and New Zealanders with naive faith in the professional integrity of their national broadcasters will continue to be insulated from these tragic truths. As are American with that same naive faith. I mean, I love them to death. I got a buddy who still believes that Dan Rather is still right along with those national broadcasters. So, fortunately for those who dare to read them, there are now plenty of accessible, reliable sources of alternative perspectives on Russia-West relations and the pivotal importance of the war in Ukraine in transforming the world. This world now looks very different from outside the Western lager. We are in the midst of huge global changes. It is now a multipolar world, as many people have been referencing and pointing to and predicting and saying were inevitable. But, of course, thanks to the likes of propagandists, I will add the word propagandists, like Harding and his Anglo-American friends, we won't find such information anywhere on the ABC or RNZ. We antipodians in the colonies will be the last to know. And so who is Tony Kevin? He's a former Australian senior diplomat, having served as an ambassador to Cambodia and to Poland, as well as being posted to Australia's embassy in Moscow. He's the author of 6 published books on public policy and international relations. And this is exclusive to Consortium News, which, again, give them a follow, give them a subscribe, consortiumnews.com. They're heavily suppressed. They do excellent work. Kathy Vogan, Joe Loria, John Pilger publishes there. Patrick, not Lancaster, the other Patrick. I'm losing. I don't have it's slipping my mind. This is what happens when you get old, folks.